Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment of the weekend show brought to you by Holocrunch.
Crunchy, yummy goodness.
On today's segment, we'll be talking about internet censorship. If you remember, in December of 2019, the National Assembly had proposed 2 bills to stifle the use of social media in Nigeria. Nigerians on social media kicked back against these bills, and today there has been a reoccurrence or resurgence of these conversations regarding the regularization of social media, or regulation, I beg your pardon, of social media. Joining us in today's program to discuss this, we have
Ambassador Aliyu being Abbas. He is the president community-based organization of African youths, also the special advisor to former presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar on youth. And we also have Lanre Arogundade, executive director, International Press Center, Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Lanre, I'll go straight to you. Since 2015 and then 2019, 2015 it was Senator Igbinedion who proposed a bill which was called the Social Media Bill, and a lot of people spoke against it. Then, like Osasu just said, we've had the Internet Falsehood Bill and the Hate Speech Bill which has been proposed. Why do you think there's a constant push to regulate the internet and social media space in Nigeria at the moment?
Hello, good morning.
Yes, Lanre, I can hear you. Can you go on? Why do you think there's a push? Yes, we can hear you.
Question, please. Can you take it again?
So basically, there's been a push to regulate social media and the internet space in Nigeria, from the Internet Falsehoods proposed bill to the proposed hate speech bill and what we call the social media bills. Why do you think there's a constant push to regulate social media in Nigeria over the last couple of years till today?
Well, I think it's a global challenge that we media freedom and civil society organizations face, in the sense that governments tend to hoard information, and they also want the information that will go out in the public space to be the information that they approve. So to that extent, the whole idea of regulating the internet is essentially an attempt to curtail the free flow of information, especially critical information that could mean that you are trying to hold those in government to account for their needs. In the case of Nigeria, we think that these whole attempts at internet censorship, it's more informed by attitude of intolerance towards criticism, by an attempt to criminalize dissent or criticism. Don't forget that one of the easiest ways by which government to blackmail civil society is to say, oh, an information is fake news. It constitutes, hate speech. So in the context of Nigeria, they were actually going to establish a national commission on hate speech, which in itself would have been wasteful. And when we looked at the provisions of that bill, essentially what it was saying is that if, in the opinion of the commission, so at the end of the day, the whole question of what will lead to sanctioning in the internet space essentially is informed by just opinion. Just the same way the NBC, for example, recently slammed a fine on AIT, on Arise Television and Channels Television, because they said, oh, you engage in fake news. But there was no substantiation. So this was an opinion. So for us, really, it's about that. Now, we're not also saying that everything out there should just go out there on the internet. But the internet itself is self-regulating. And all those things government is talking about, things about hate speech, things about this, these are things that could actually be done in conjunction with the technological service providers. There are technologies now makes it possible for you to say, okay, some words in our context consider speech, they can be removed, and so on and so forth. So we have this genuine fear that these all attempts at introducing the social media bill, the hate speech bill, would just at the end of the day be a means of cow the citizens, deny citizens the right of freedom of expression. And we think there should be a balance. There should be a balance between trying to, get rid of what is not good in the online environment and ensuring that the right of citizens to freedom of expression is not curtailed.
Lanre, you mentioned something very critical. You talked about the internet being self-regulatory. There's a global shift towards, regulating the information and the content that users are able to generate and disseminate out there on the internet. Twitter, for example, now flags false or, unverified information as, fake news, and Instagram is doing the same, so is Facebook. So do you believe that the government also needs to play a further role in regulating what their citizens in their respective nations are posting out there? And another question to you would be, what do we as citizens, what do we as users of the internet do to protect ourselves against over-regulation?
Well, thanks. Looking at the way you introduced this question, what we're saying then is that Twitter is already doing this. They flag, messages that they know can constitute, a threat, can constitute hate speech to society. WhatsApp also does that. If you look at WhatsApp, these days they even regulate how you share, things. They will tell you that some things have been shared over time. And then the same thing with Facebook. So what we're saying really is that government could actually look at this and work, with these, I call them service providers. I hope that will be a correct term, and looked at those specific issues rather than trying to introduce legislation that would deny Nigerian, the right to use the internet environment. And for us journalists, we're concerned because given the convergence that we have now, given the fact that the media now operates more in the realm of the internet, the realm of technology. Everybody is online now. We're having this chat online. This is a TV program. Radio is online. Newspapers are online. So we're also concerned about the internet rights of journalists. We don't want a situation whereby you use these legislations indirectly, to deny that. That is why we're saying that there should be better means of doing this rather than outrightly introducing legislations that would amount to curtailing freedom of expression and even press freedom in the online environment. Now, as to the other question, what could citizens do? I think that we need a lot of enlightenment. And in terms of what citizens can do, government also has a role to play. For example, the Minister of Information repeatedly talks about hate speech, fake news. What does the average Nigerian know about, what constitutes hate speech, what constitutes fake news? And what we're saying is that you have a government institution like National Orientation Agency that has spread all over the country, that has offices in all the 774 local governments of the country. Why don't you use this, agency to enlighten citizens in simple languages in terms of what you should do, what you should not do on social media? If you get a video, do not share it if you are not sure of the source. If you get that information, don't say because it comes from my imam or from my pastor, then it must be true. And then you are engaging in misinformation, which is when you share an information that is false without you realizing that it's false. So in terms of what we can do, I think we need a whole lot of enlightenment. Our citizens need to also be trained on how to use the social media. When you get a message on your WhatsApp and that message is casting aspersion on another ethnic group or is denigrating somebody on the basis of sex or the basis of religion, that kind of message, citizens need to know that they need to not share it. Some they think it's joke, but sometimes these jokes lead to tension in the society. So we need a whole lot of enlightenment, and citizens need to be well, informed. And what we want citizens to do more is use the social media to bring to the attention of the media and the government things about developmental issues around you. Nobody will complain if your roads are bad. You capture that on WhatsApp, you share it so that it can come to the attention of the duty bearers, those who are supposed to be responsible for that. So for me, citizens must know that the internet, the social media, is a tool, is a weapon for bringing about good governance.
Most definitely. Lanre, I'm so sorry to interject. Let's bring in Ambassador Aliyu here. Ambassador, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay,
Good morning.
good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on the weekend show.
You're welcome.
My question to Lanre was, how do citizens protect themselves from,
Regulation.
I keep on mixing it up. Regulation. How do we, the citizens, protect ourselves from over-regulation? How do we, at the end of the day, continue to disseminate information that we believe it's to further the tenets of democracy, information that we believe that would deepen, the dividends of democracy for every Nigerian? How do we protect ourselves in these very precarious times?
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here. I think Nigeria, maybe before I move into that, as the young people that truly believe in the cause of this country, Nigeria is our country. We don't have any other place like Nigeria. Yeah. And when you look at the gamut of leaders, I think our leaders are not getting it right in so many aspects. Talking about the censorship, is that what we need now? Is that what we need now? Number one. Number two, there are so many important issues that the government is supposed to focus on. If you look at the area of education, the area of healthcare delivery, the area of insecurity, it's almost everywhere in the country. But why are they now concentrating on the issue of social media? You see, Nigeria needs to learn. We have to grow. Nigeria is the largest black nation in the world. We travel all the time. We travel to so many countries and we have been seeing all sorts of developments there. But why are we always backward? Anything that has to do with social media, I think it's a very, very delicate issue that the government needs to think critically before taking any decision. I could remember in 2002, the social media played a role in bringing on board, the people in power today. So I don't think there is a need for us, to talk about the social media, censorship or what have you at this critical time. Let's concentrate on the future of this country. Let's concentrate on the future of the youth. What does the government have for the masses?
Aliyu, I'm sorry, Aliyu, I need to interrupt you because you've not touched on Osasu's question. Whether we like it or not, okay, the government has actively shown signs of wanting to regulate social media. The Lagos State House of Assembly had at least 5 members speak against social media just last week. The Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, was captured on video talking about how powerful social media and data is. And so it is already a conversation. Now, you are an advisor to a former presidential candidate who would have been in power, and the current Cybercrime Act of 2015 was done by the 8th Assembly, which was the previous government, and that already has its way of curtailing most of this. So it's a situation we currently face. What can the citizens, the people, not just the youths, Nigerians, what can they do to protect themselves against their rights being infringed on through such bills, which has constantly been tried to be passed by the government? What can we do?
There are so many things the masses can do. Even though we know there are so many irregularities happening in the social media, talking about the scammers, they're everywhere, for now. And people are using the social media actually to dupe people. And there are also fake news, going out all there. So the most important thing that we're supposed to do as people that truly believe in this country is anything that you post on social media, you have to find out that it is real in order to avoid all these kind of irregularities. So I think it is not a crime for the masses or for Nigerians to play a very, very significant role in trying to be very, very careful and sensitive. You have to observe, you have to realize that what you are posting on that social media is real and is genuine. But on the other hand, I think what the government
We seem to be having technical difficulties. I want to bring Lanre back. Just before, as you spoke, Lanre mentioned how it could be advisable for governments to have conversations with the internet service providers or the providers of social media platforms. And my question to you, Lanre, is by doing this, isn't it indirectly still trying to censor social media? Because that way government can request for data and information about the people and choose what goes on the internet or not. Isn't that even worse?
Yeah, well, like I said, these internet service providers, they're already doing some things in the area of hate speech, in the area of fake news, which we cannot do anything about on their own. Even in the American elections, we saw what happened. At the stage, they had to take some, hateful messages, Trump and the rest of them. So they're already doing this. And for me, if the concern is genuinely about that, then it would be that let us understand that, okay, within our context, these are some things that are not acceptable. There's no way you are going to talk about combating some of the negative aspects of social media that you are not going to talk about the internet, service providers. But even at that, stakeholders must be carried, along. This is not government can do alone. And here, actually, we should be talking about governance because we, the civil society, we are part of that. Our parliament is part of that. So it's not something that the executive should just do alone. So this thing is not just about just what the Minister of Information first, with due respect, but it's also about the fact that whatever would happen, even at that level of engagement, we believe that civil society should be involved. The legislature should be involved. They need to discuss this. They need to hold public hearings around these issues. But internationally, actually, there's a global effort to ensure that the internet rights of citizens are not curtailed. And for me, that would in itself be a checkmate for the government if it attempts to go behind the doors and do all these things. And also don't forget that these internet service providers, they're also subject to global regulations. So it's not just about what the Nigerian government feels. It's not automatic that they would accept what the government will put out there for them. Now, to the previous question about what citizens could do to protect that space, to protect their what we can call their internet freedom against censorship. Like I said, citizens must know that this is a tool for good governance. So the whole agitation against government undue regulation or undue censorship of internet space must be of concern to citizens too. And so citizens as organized in different groups, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations must also join this advocacy because they must also recognize what this internet has done for them. It has given them the widest scope of expression that anybody could imagine. And we could even see that at play as far as the recent NSAS crisis is concerned. It is this social media that is helping to bring out the truth about what has really happened beyond the eyewitness accounts of some of the journalists from the conventional media that were there on ground. So definitely it's a delicate issue really, because I agree with Ambassador Abbas that government should have more serious things to do. But the truth of the matter is we cannot close our ears to the fact that citizens are also concerned about the kind of things that are going on the social media. Because we must recognize that fake news actually exists, where somebody knows that an information is false, and despite that knowledge, goes ahead to share that information. And if we don't speak against it, they will also use it against us in the media. And that is why we have invested a lot of resources in training journalists on fact checking, how you could verify video, how you could verify audio, and so on and so forth. It's important because if we as media are not seen as doing something about this, then everybody will think that, oh, all of us are part of this fake news business. But our approach is that whatever you do must not deny citizens that right. So if you look at the NBC case against China's TV, one of the things they said was that they were using unverified information. Because we know part of our broadcasting now is that you take eyewitness reports, you take amateur videos, and you say this person is sending this. That is one way of citizens being part of governance, of helping the media.
Most definitely.
The kind of regulation they're introducing will take away all that in terms of user generation content. Yeah. And that in itself is cutting the citizens away from the internet environment, from the social media environment. So we're clearly opposed to that. So in opposing the social media bill and the one establishing the hate speech commission, we actually went through the provisions in detail. And we then realized that the motive really that was driving this was not a genuine concern about fake news like government said, but essentially, like I said, to prevent citizens from expressing themselves. But it's a danger when you do that.
Can you? Yeah, sorry to interject again, but we have to round up. But before we let you go, how serious or how critical is this subject matter? Because we see in China that the government obviously tries to regulate their use of social media and their access to certain information, but yet the tech-savvy ones are able to download a VPN, a virtual private network, and still access, Facebook, WhatsApp, and these other social media accounts. So how critical is this situation? How worried should Nigerians be, and to what extent can the government actually regulate what we do online and the way we interact? Very quickly, please.
Yeah, it's very critical, and I'm glad you mentioned China, because in justifying these, the Minister of Information actually said, it cited the example of China where there's regulation of social media and the business is doing very well, but it's not totally true, because even in China it has affected their businesses. Google in 2011, for example, pulled out of China. So for me, we're dealing with a very critical situation, something that could affect businesses, not just media alone, because a lot of business is done on the online environment now. So it's not just for us in the media alone. It's as that critical that in fact businesses themselves should be interested in what is in happening, and the danger is already there. For example, I hope you remember that there was a time when the army spokesperson said that the army already have a kind of social media or internet monitoring unit. So they're already, monitoring, what citizens are doing, and this is quite clearly not, acceptable. And so we must all wake up to the danger. And I must commend you for having this kind of conversation, having this kind of program, which for me is also about sensitizing all of us to these issues and for all of us to be involved. People should not make it look as it is though just media alone. Don't mind those journalists; they want to write, anything. It's also not about the government of the day. This government will leave, another government will come. People will want to use these spaces to criticize that government, and then what would happen? So let us look at the fact that the internet, the social media, has become part and parcel.
Thank you.
This is Google governance, and we must all struggle to protect that space.
Thank you so much, Lanre. That's a fine place to leave it. Lanre, Ambassador Aliyu, thank you so much for your time. We'll take a short break right now. You're most welcome. We'll take a short break right now. When we return, more on the Weekend Show. Don't go anywhere.